What if you could see the future? Not just with one crystal ball, but with two, completely different ones. Well, today we're going to try something like that. We're peering into the year 2026 by mashing together predictions from two totally different worlds to see what's really going on.
So on one side, you've got geopolitical analysis. You know, the world of power blocks, grand strategy, hard economics. And on the other side, we've got Vedic astrology, this ancient system that looks at planetary cycles and karmic patterns. Our goal here is to see where these two very different ways of looking at the world actually agree, and where they show us completely different futures.
All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to start with the big picture, this idea of a world splitting apart. Then we'll zoom right into the hotspots, the drums of war. After that, we'll talk about the economy, the leaders who are making the big calls, and finally, we'll ask, okay, what's the advice for getting through all this?
Okay, first things first. Let's talk about the very foundation of our world. Is that whole era of globalization and everyone trying to work together, is that over? Is something way more confrontational taking its place?
Well, the term that geopolitical strategists are throwing around is Cold War 2.0. But look, this isn't just a simple rerun of the US versus the Soviet Union. No, this is a deep, systemic split, a bifurcation, as they call it. It means the whole global system is literally splitting in two, with competition happening everywhere, in every domain, just short of an all-out shooting war.
So, what do these new teams look like? Well, on one side, you've got the familiar setup, right? The bloc built around American power and its allies. But on the other side, analysts are pointing to something new, and they're calling it the Dragon Bear. Now, this is way more than just a convenient partnership between China and Russia. It's described as a deep, functional integration. What that means is their economies, their militaries, their technology, it's all getting tangled up together to create a serious counterweight to the US.
But here's where the other lens gives us a totally different perspective. While the analysts see a new phase, the astrological view says, hold on, this isn't new at all. From this perspective, all this tension we're feeling, it's just part of a much, much longer cosmic cycle of conflict. They don't see this as some short-term crisis. Nope. They see a pattern that's basically locked in for more than a decade.
So if the world really is splitting apart, where are the sparks going to fly? Let's get specific and look at where these forecasts say we could see actual military conflict. And this is where it gets really fascinating. The geopolitical analysis points to things cooling down in Europe. The idea is that the war in Ukraine is probably headed for a frozen conflict. You know, some kind of political deal that creates a long-term stalemate, kind of like the Korean Peninsula. But the Vedic astrology lens points to a completely different part of the world, forecasting a literal hot war in South Asia. A region, by the way, where tensions have been simmering for a very, very long time.
And according to this astrological timeline, this isn't a single event. It's not a one-and-done kind of thing. It's predicted to happen in stages. After some initial conflict in 2025, a whole new phase is expected to kick off before March of 2026, and it all seems to be building towards a really major escalation later in the decade.
The predictions for Bangladesh are, wow, they're incredibly specific. The interpretation of the astrological charts suggests the country could start taking anti-India actions after September 2026. This then leads to massive internal chaos, loss of territory, and even the possibility, and this is a huge claim, that the country itself could break into 2 or 3 pieces. Okay, so this kind of global instability, wars, fragmentation, it obviously has huge consequences for the economy. So let's switch gears. What do the forecasts say about our finances, our money, in 2026?
The astrological prediction here is, well, it's about as blunt as it gets. There's really no wiggle room. The forecast is that 2026 is the year for a big, significant economic crash. So the question is, why? What's behind such a dramatic warning?
It looks like a perfect storm of factors all hitting at once. First, all those geopolitical tensions and conflicts we just talked about, that's expected to drive inflation way up. Second, the explosion in AI technology is predicted to cause major disruptions, especially for white-collar jobs. And third, a pretty sharp warning for anyone in crypto. A major crash is predicted, particularly in the summer months.
And you can see here the impact isn't going to be the same for everyone. Inflation's going to hit the lower and middle classes the hardest. But at the same time, some things, like silver, are predicted to skyrocket because of their use in military tech. It really highlights the fragility of new assets like crypto and just how vulnerable the traditional office job market is becoming to AI. Of course, none of this just happens. It's all shaped by the decisions of key leaders around the world. So how do they fit into this whole 2026 puzzle?
Well, here we see two totally different leadership styles predicted. For a potential Trump presidency, analysts are expecting a very transactional approach. Basically, a pragmatic deal to sideline Russia so that all the focus can be on China. Meanwhile, in India, astrologers describe Prime Minister Modi's chart as being Mars-driven. In astrology, Mars is all about energy, conflict, and taking action. So the prediction is for a period of very bold, decisive moves to take advantage of what they call a potent period, like a cosmic window of opportunity.
And these astrological forecasts don't just stay at the 30,000-foot level. They drill right down into regional politics. For example, in India's state of West Bengal, the charts for the ruling party are interpreted as signaling an era's end. The prediction suggests some major political upheaval, with even their most loyal voters potentially turning on them.
So, given this whole forecast of a world on the edge, a world in turmoil, what's the takeaway? I mean, what are we supposed to do? What advice is there for navigating this storm?
And here we find this really fascinating split in the astrological advice. On one level, for nations and leaders, the message is, go big, be bold, harness that assertive Mars energy and act decisively. But for us, for individuals, the advice is the complete opposite. It's to turn inward. It suggests focusing on your own integrity, on your own compassion, as a way to stay stable and grounded while all this chaos is swirling outside.
And that really leaves us with a final, crucial question. When you're faced with a time of massive, world-changing transformation, what is the best path forward? Is it the path of bold, external action, shaping events with force and strategy? Or is it the path of mindful, internal intention, getting through the storm by focusing on how we behave ourselves? That, right there, seems to be the core tension we're all going to be dealing with.